Republican Party Chairman Jim Walsh here for our weekly Chairman's Update video. A lot has been going on here in Washington State this past week, some interesting things. Certainly the riots at the University of Washington, its main campus, have been in the news a lot. The destruction to an engineering building on the campus, and generally just the bad behavior of some sort of self-styled communists and Marxists and socialists. They're kids mostly. I say kids, they're adults, but they're acting like kids, basically like spoiled children. No surprise there. But the surprise has been in the reaction of some of our elected officials. It's very interesting that when confronted with the violence that was happening in these riots, nominally in support of Palestine, but really just generally against the Trump administration and everything, local elected officials sort of didn't know what to say. The governor, Mr. Ferguson, was confronted by some local media reporters to characterize what was going on, asked if he considered it domestic terrorism. And the governor couldn't figure out how to respond. He said he didn't know what the definition of domestic terrorism is, and kind of waffled and punted and avoided any straight answer. Wouldn't be so bad, except one of the last acts that the governor had in his previous job as state attorney general was creating a task force that looked at domestic terrorism and extremism. So the fellow that doesn't know what it means was setting up a task force to try to deal with the same issue. Clearly, he just didn't want to be held on the record doing anything that would be perceived as critical of these childish adults gallivanting around, burning things and breaking things at the UW campus. Our state attorney general was no better. He sort of fumbled and didn't know what to say, put out a very milquetoast statement about these riots at UW, then took it down because as milquetoast as it was perceived as too critical of the leftist childish adults doing the protests and the rioting, and then put up another one. And really it was all kind of huff and puff. The state attorney general, Mr. Brown, kind of made a fool out of himself there. Mr. Brown is making a fool out of himself in other ways. He basically is filing a lawsuit each week against the Trump administration. The latest is a lawsuit trying to prevent the Trump administration's use of an emergency declaration at the federal level to loosen up energy production, to make energy production, natural gas production, other sources of energy easier to do. And it's kind of a silly lawsuit. This same office, anyway, previously, and certainly some of the same players in it, have supported the non-traditional use of emergency declarations, especially when Jay Inslee was doing it during the COVID outbreaks, and to a lesser extent when Joe Biden, or whoever was really in charge when Joe Biden was president, did it for various reasons in the last few years. So it is not intellectually consistent. They're being a little intellectually dishonest when they complain now about Trump's use of emergency declarations, but didn't mind them one bit when Inslee and Biden were doing them. It's an interesting time here in Washington. The left in these executive positions, governor, state attorney general, state school superintendent, are screwing up so badly they kind of can't keep standing up. The governor recently released a very cringy video where he was trying to brag about some infrastructure repairs done in the Hoh rainforest, a beautiful place out on the Olympic Peninsula, trying to take some credit for stuff that was already in the works before he was governor, of course. Cringy video, though. He dressed in a very bizarre way and took some ribbing about that. He ended up looking like a guy who doesn't go out in the forest very often, which maybe he's not. So that was kind of awkward and strange. They're struggling. They're not doing well. And looming over all of this, of course, is the record-setting state tax increases that they've been supporting. And the governor is between a rock and a hard place, as I've said before. He isn't sure what to do, doesn't know what to do. If he stays consistent to his promises from the campaign trail, he needs to veto some of these tax hikes. But if he vetoes the tax hikes, he gets the legislative friends angry at him who want to raise taxes and spend more money, and potentially would throw the budget out of balance, which is illegal to do. So the governor is in a tough place. It will be the measure of his character how he responds. Hopefully he'll not look as silly as he did in his video about the Hoh rainforest. All of this comes to the point of, what can you do? What can I do? What can we, as regular people, common sense people, do to fix these problems here in Washington? Well, this is filing week. This is the week, and we're getting toward the end of it now, where people can file to run, mostly for local offices, a lot of city councils, some mayor races, some school boards. We're really keeping our eye on some of those school board races around the state. There are a couple of special legislative races, state senate races in the 5th district, which is kind of the Issaquah area, and the 26th district, which is the kind of Gig Harbor, Port Orchard area, and a couple of other special elections too. But the real focus right now, this year, this cycle, is on the local races and those school board races. The Washington State Republican Party, as it did 2 years ago, with a limited number of school board races, is going to get behind, hopefully, a larger number of school board races this year, and help get conservative, common sense people elected to school boards around the state. And of course, the party will be supporting those special legislative elections, particularly those 2 state senate elections happening this year. We believe that the results of those 2 state senate elections, again, one in the Issaquah area, one in the Port Orchard, Gig Harbor area, that those 2 state senate races are going to be leading indicators for what we hope will be a return of common sense conservatism to the state legislature during the regular election cycle next year in 2026. So those special elections in 2025 should be an indicator of how things will go in 2026. I will continue to talk with you in the coming weeks about the election cycle this year. We will focus on those school board races spread geographically all around the state, and those special legislative races. This year, it's our chance to help get the wave moving, the momentum heading in the right direction that will come to a full crest next year in 2026, when we have the regular cycle of legislative and congressional races here in Washington State. I think that there is a line you can draw from this outrageous, really domestic terroristic behavior at the University of Washington, and lawlessness in general that people like Bob Ferguson and Nick Brown encourage, and people's frustration with a government that's taxing them too heavily and not delivering good services, and concern about someone like the Attorney General Brown just swanning around, suing the Trump administration over silly things, to a change in the way people think about elected officials here in Washington State. I think, as I've said before, that the establishment left here in Washington is at the end of a long run, and I think we're about to turn the tide. There'll be more to tell next week and in the next few weeks. After filing week is done, we will know with greater detail who's running for what and where. I'll fill you in on all of that. But for now, keep your eye on what's going on at UW. Keep your eye on how elected officials like Bob Ferguson and Nick Brown talk about violence and domestic terrorism. And in all, stay strong and be well. Talk to you soon.